Okay, so in this example, we are going to create a new file. Let's create a new file, and let's name it as a select, but I'm going to use table format. So how about table.php? Okay, so instead of editing from the scratch, what I want to try is I want to copy our previous code. So I will go back to select all.php. Let me copy everything from select all.php, and I will paste here select table.php. Okay, and then let me close select all.php. So this is a select table.php. Okay, and I'm going to, from now on, I'm going to use WordPad because I want to change some colors for each line, but you just keep editing in this, PHP editor. Okay, so here I just copied our code, current code in WordPad. Again, you don't have to use WordPad. You just keep editing in your PHP editor. So why I'm using WordPad here is since in this example I need to mix PHP and HTML codes, and by doing this, actually it's later. Ultimately, it's easier to read. However, when you type, it could be very confusing because you may have multiple PHP blocks. So to prevent any confusion, from now on, let me change PHP code into, how about green color? Oh, it's too bright. So how about blue color? And the HTML code that I'm going to add will be black color. Okay, so first job, what you need to do is you have to split your PHP code. So if you read your PHP code, yes, we make a connection, we made a connection, and here we execute SQL statements. And we start while statements, but inside here, when you read the columns, I don't want to show like this, but I want to show in table format. So first, let me delete this. And here again, we are going to show the result, but in tabular format. Okay, so before we start while, I want to add some HTML, and that's a table. So first, I will temporarily split here PHP. Since I close here, definitely I need to reopen here PHP. So now PHP is disconnected. Here one block of PHP, and here the other block of PHP. Between these two PHP blocks, now feel free to use any HTML code because this part is not a PHP. So what we wanna do, I'm going to use, but let me change the color. So here, I'm going to use HTML, so table, and let me set border equals to 1, and I need to close table, right? To close the table, after while I may close the table. So here, let me change it, the color. Again, this is end of PHP. So I can use HTML code here. So let me close the table here. Okay, so this is HTML, this is HTML. By the way, in the previous example, I forgot to close the connection. So before we move on, let me close the connection here. Sorry about that. So close the connection. MySQLi, and let's close the connection. So let me type the MySQLi close and the con. Okay, so here we added a table. Now the first row of this table will be just the title. So simply I want to add one row. What's the tag name for row? Yes, it's a tr. So let me use a tr tag, and then let me close here tr tag. Okay, now we want to show some information here. So let's think about how many columns we are going to show. Okay, so in this example, let's show all the columns. So ID, first name, last name, and age. So I'm going to add 4 TD tags. So let me add 4 TD tags. Okay, so here, so in this row, first row, I have ID, first name, last name, and age. So this is a title row. And now, following row, it's gonna be for each one specific row, and we have to retrieve the value. So what we need to do, actually, after you get the value for one specific row, you can print it out. So here, let me try it. So before we print out the value, let me add this step. So now in this loop inside, we can get the value with the column name, right? So let's say in one loop, I am focusing one row. Then how can I get the ID? Can I assign the value for ID? Yes, how? With row and what will be the index? Index will be your column name. So person ID. Oh, column name is case sensitive, so we cannot use this. So let me fix it. So if you check your table in PHP-MyAdmin, you will see that this one is lowercase and ID. So since it's kind of long description, I get the value and I will assign in a little bit short variable like ID. And similarly, let me get first name, so with the first and with this row as variable, and what's gonna be the index, it will be case sensitive column name. So first name, and similarly let's do last name. So last equals to $ row, and what's the index? Last name. So last, be careful, it's a case sensitive. And the last one, ag, and let's see, it's a row, and let's type column name. So a is uppercase, so age. So now we got those values for one specific columns, right? So let me use some indentation for better reading. With those values, we are going to use table format. So we will start HTML. So at this point, it's kind of looks weird, but you have to close. So you will split PHP one more time. Then when do you open it? Actually, just before the closing brace of your while loop. So here, let's reopen PHP. Now, between here, we are going to add HTML. What will be the HTML? Yes, here we will create the TR, and we close here TR. It's not title page, but from this, actually we are showing actual data. And in this row, we will print type actual values. So TD, and let's close TD. And how many values? ID, first, last, age. So actually 4 of them. So let me copy. So we have 4 of them. So now here, what we want to print, we need to print this value of ID. Then this ID is again what? It's gonna be PHP. but this portion is black, so it's HTML. So what we have to do now, between here TD and beginning and closing TD, yes, we have to reopen PHP. So let me change to blue color. This is just one line PHP, so we can close PHP here. So $ PHP opening and close. So what we want to add here? Yes, echo $ID. Yes, by doing this, actually, we run a PHP code with the echo. Similarly, let me add this syntax PHP opening, closing, and instead of ID, second column will be first, as we assigned up here. And the third one is last. And finally, we have age here. So if you have this HTML code inside this while loop, then this HTML code will be printed repeatedly until this loop stops. So now we may have several TR codes and in its result. I will show you later. So we are done, and then we close it, and then there is a table closing HTML. Okay, so this is the code. So now let me test it. Okay, so here instead of select all, let's type select the table.php and hit enter. Now we get this result. So just for this example, it may be useful to see actual HTML code. So let me right click, and if you check view page source, you may see this source code. So you can see that the first one, actually we typed it outside the while loop, but all those tr tags, how could we generate it? This is generated by while loop. And what's the code? Let me show you the code one more time. So here, this code is repeated several times. Why? Because it's inside the while loop. So for beginners, it may be a little bit complex because we add PHP, HTML, PHP, HTML, PHP, HTML, PHP like this. So it's a kind of mix of PHP and HTML code. But by doing this, actually, it's very clear to understand which part is programming and which part is graphical design using HTML. So if you still feel it's a little bit confusing, please read carefully this code and try to figure out how we implemented this actual result using PHP code. Okay. Now, as a last example, we will add a minor modification. So in this example, we still want to use a select query, but let's try to implement a very simple search function. So when user provide a last name, let's try to find the persons who have that last name. So the first page is a very simple user interface where there is an input box and the user can enter last name, and she or he can click the button. Then in the next page, let's show the result that match with that last name. So make a user interface first. So the HTML page, here click new, file, and let's name it as search person.html. Okay, so in this HTML page, we are going to type HTML code. So let me type HTML, and here let me close HTML, and we do not have a header. Let's directly start with the body, and let me close body, and inside the body we have one input box. So let's use last name as a caption and followed by a input. So let me use input tag. So let me close the input tag. What is the type? Type equals to, yes, text box. So let's type text. And it is very important to specify name, right? So now you understand why we need name, because you need to retrieve the value using this name as an index later, right? Okay, and now we have one more input. So let's add a button input. So input, and then let me close it. And in this case, type equals to, yes, submit. So submit. Okay, and now sometimes people want to change the caption of this button. How can we change it? So actually you can name it. So let's say name is search. Okay, and if you use input, one more thing you must keep in mind. Yes, you need to envelope. So form tag is needed. So in one form, you will add everything. So all the inputs will be enclosed. So the closing form tag must be added at the end of the last input. So there is a form, and there is a last name text box, and we have one button. Now, in form, you need to specify two things. One is action. What is the action? Action is the page, the destination page where you handle all this logics. So let's say, how about where.php as a name? And the method, we have two methods, either post or get method. So in this case, let's use a post method. Let's see whether there is any typo. Actually, that's it. So it's a very simple web interface. So let me save it. First, let's check how does it look like. Oh, by the way, I made a mistake. So if you want to change the caption, it's not name, but you have to assign value. So value equals to search, then you may see search as a name of the button. So after you save it, and if you run it in your browser, okay, so here in search person.html, you have this interface. So, if you have multiple persons, you may want to find the person only who have last name Cha. Then if I click Cha search, yes, there is nothing, but there is error because we do not have where.php. So what do we need? Go back to your phpMyAdmin and phpMyAdmin WinSP, and we have to make a new file, and name it as where.php. So where.php, actually you need to slightly modify what you have done so far. So instead of developing from the scratch, please go back to your selected table.php, and let's copy everything from select table.php, and we are going to copy this in our new file. So here in where.php. So starting point of where.php is your selected table.php. Now in this file, only one thing what we want to add is here, even before make a connection, we want to get the value for the last name search term. So how can you get it? We can get using post array variable. So let's say how about key value? So search key value to get this $sign underbar post, and what will be the index value inside this post? Yes, the name of input. So in our previous HTML page, we use last name as a name, so let's use last name. Then we will get the value that user entered. Then you may need to slightly modify your SQL statements. Select everything from persons, but let's add a condition. What is the condition? Where, and followed by yes, column name, last name equals to, you can use equals to, but the better option is we can use like, right? So you can use like, and we have this keyword, but before keyword or after keyword we can add any letters. So in that case we can use percentage sign. You may remember it, so if you forgot, please review the lectures about SQL in our previous module. So it may be good like this. So let me add a percentage sign in front of last and concatenate it with another percentage sign. But don't forget, here there is one single quotation mark. The reason is, after like, we start with a single quote and then percentage sign, and there is a keyword. Sorry, it's not last but key. So keyword, and then it's followed by another percentage sign. So you understand how we created these select statements? Okay, so now let's save it and let's test it. So go back to our search person, and I typed my last name. If I search, yes, among 6 data, I can retrieve only 2 persons who have last name Cha. And this is done by where statement with like syntax. So that's it. That's everything about topic 5. So in this last module, starting with HTML and some basics about PHP, now we accomplish it to develop, although it's not very complex, a small prototyping web application that use MySQL as a database. So thank you for attending, and hope to have another chance to meet you guys. Bye now.